My name is Glenn Kirkwood Eales. I am a psychic medium. I use this gift that I have to spread healing by connecting in with loved ones that have passed and just giving closure and by connecting with loved ones.
Right, Glenn, we're rolling. Welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. Tell us a little bit, tell us who you are.
Okay, well, my name is Glenn Kirkwood Eales. I am a psychic medium. As part of who I am, and I basically use this gift that I have to spread healing by connecting in with what I call source or spirit, and connecting with loved ones that have passed, and then enabling there to be resolved, to be understanding, and just giving closure and healing by connecting with loved ones. And through this, it's just been an awesome blessing of a gift to be able to share with people, and also just to give them that understanding that once we've passed, there is so much more and so much just amazingness beyond this lifetime. And it's just a blessing to be able to do this.
I'm really looking forward to getting into all of that with you. Let's go back to the early years. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up. What was your family life like? And then when did you discover that you had this gift? But
interestingly, I grew up in a little town called Springs in the East Rand in Gauteng, South Africa, and very normal life, very sort of average family, very good, nothing extraordinary. But right from the word go, and if I think back, the first moments that I have that I felt this connection was actually really far back, like 3, 4, 5 years old, where I remember one of my fondest times being able to just spend on my own, or theoretically on my own, in a space where I would communicate and chat and have my mom say to me, "Who are you talking to? Who are you chatting to?" And be busy for hours on end. And her thinking, "Oh, you've got a very good child that's kind of content on their own space," but not really playing or not, but talking. And when I would give answers, I'd say, "No, I was speaking to grandpa," or "I was speaking to a family member who I had never met." And my mom kind of thinking, "Whoa, this is a bit strange." And so right from the word go, I remember looking and thinking, but this is norm to me and I'm happy in this space. But having that sense that for my mom and for the family, this was not a norm. And then taking a bit of time to kind of move out of that space and like kind of almost it not being accepted. So you kind of block it away. You kind of keep it to yourself. And you don't really want to share it with the world because the world thinks you're a little odd. And instead of reveling in the odd, kind of shying away from it. I was a very serious kid, right from the word go. And if I look back, all I wanted to be was older and wiser and able to be myself. And this played a lot to do with not only on a spiritual level, but also on a physical level, feeling a little different to the world. And knowing that you're slightly different, you don't know, are you mad? Are you a bit crazy? But at the end of the day, I still found this immense joy in spending time in spirit. Strangely enough, when one is younger and one gets involved in a religious environment, it became a bit of a taboo. It was hidden. It was you can't be thinking these things. You can't be feeling these things. This is not on. This is reserved for those that know, and not for little boys who are 6 or 7. And finding almost a fear of your connection to source or to God, or finding a place where you're comfortable to be able to express this. Fortunately, what I feel is spirit has a way of kind of moving ahead without us having much say in the matter. And so without thinking it, I'd let slip information that gets passed on. I would say things to family members that I didn't really have, shouldn't have had the knowledge to know. I shouldn't have been able to predict or to be able to state what they're feeling at such a young age. And a couple of times it got me into trouble where people thought you were nosy or you were too big for your boots or something like that. And sometimes they would kind of go, whoa, something's going on. And now and again, I'd have a family member, particularly if I think of my grandmothers who were more spiritual in nature. And they kind of said, it's okay. What he's saying, listen to what he's saying. This is coming from a good place, not a bad place. And in saying that, getting involved in churches, in my case, I grew up a very Christian household. It was a taboo. It was just not a non-discussed thing. And the church was very adamant about not allowing me to express or understand or make peace with or just be me. So that became very hard for me because you kind of moved away from that. You didn't incorporate it at all, which was very sad. And when one did explore into it, there was a line. I knew I had to draw a line for a point where I couldn't tell everybody exactly what I was feeling. It was okay to say certain things, but there was a line where you would step on a boundary that would be prophecy, that would be thinking you're somehow divinely connected, that wasn't permitted. So even at a young age, and we're not talking that old, we're talking 9, 10, it was already a big thing for a young boy to have to deal with, amongst all the other things that you go into pre-teenagehood and so forth. So it was a bit of a journey. It really and truly was. And then moving further on, as one becomes a teenager, I went to an all-boys school, which you didn't want to stick out. You didn't want to look anything abnormal. And just to add insult into the injury, I happened to be a gay guy. And that even made you more closeted or stuck in. So I had twofold closet. One was my spiritual closet and the other was my sexuality. And both of these had to be protected and kept quiet because it wasn't the norm. And I must admit that the one that became predominant to deal with first was the physical one, was the sexuality. And once I had embraced that and sorted that out, my spiritual side, I was able to explore that a bit more. But it was always a difficult one. So it became something on the side. And I remember my first relationship, true relationship, having a partner that said to me, it's fine. I understand what you're going through, but don't say it in front of people. You don't tell them what you're feeling. And then repressing so much of what came so naturally to me and feeling that I had a fault by being who I am. And it was very complicated, but as life has, you eventually start finding like-minded people. So I think, from varsity days, from there on, I started meeting people who were not our traditionally normal people, and who had a bit more of an open mind, or would say things like, oh, he's an old soul, or would say something like, oh, he's very spiritual. But I also repressed it. And unfortunately, part of that repression did mean that one kind of threw oneself into partying and, the alcohol and kind of suppressing it through that way. And a lot of that was a difficult journey to get through. But eventually, in time, as I started meeting more and more people that were spiritual and exploring other religions, other faiths, other beliefs, I found my belief. I found my spiritual home, and I found my spiritual people. And I found out that it was okay to know that what you're feeling and what you're experiencing and what you're sharing is a gift and not a punishment. And that was just so awesome to find. And, I've come a long way from that little boy that hid in the room and spoke to the dead people, which is amazing to be able to say.
You mentioned earlier that your grandparents were aware of this. The rest of your immediate family, were they accepting of it?
You know, even now, and I'm a lot older now, but there is a understanding, but I don't think it's a total acceptance. There is a feeling from most of my family that they'll come to me when they need help. They'll come to me when they're in that struggle, but it isn't a thing that is totally and utterly embraced. I think it has a lot to do with people's belief and their religion. If I just use examples, that I have brothers, and one brother, both brothers, but mostly my older brother, is very amazing and extremely charismatic Christian, and he struggles with the concept. It works against him. So I have this, that it's an interesting one, and we've found a medium sort of lying where I can actually say to him, okay, we have differences, but we'll allow each other that. But it is a difficult one, particularly that religion, for what it is mostly the hang up that I have, where people, although I live my spirituality and I run a sanctuary and I'm there every Sunday, it isn't the same as they have. And that is a bit of a burden, I must admit. But it's a process, and there's still a lot of love between us.
What did you choose to study?
My life's a very interesting one, because I originally kind of by default ended up in human resources management. And corporate is a difficult environment, and it's very difficult for me, coming from a spiritual perspective, to separate that out. And I struggle to be hardcore and not this person that lives in his feelings and lives in his emotion and his spirit. So I did struggle with it, and then eventually found that art was my terrain. And I struggled because I couldn't. It took me about 10 years to kind of fight the corporate fight and feel like this is not working for me. And I ended up working in the entertainment technology field, particularly in decor and props. And I loved the artistic side. So it was another part of me that I could explore. And I ended up working in that environment for a bit and studying that environment and loving it. But I also was getting older, and it's an environment where I did struggle with the time. You become a night owl, and as you get older, being a night owl is a difficult thing. You want to go home to bed. You don't want to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning and sleep all day, and those things changed. And then as life just brought it, I just kept saying to Spirit, well, you guide me. Where do I need to be? And from that, I have gone and been able to explore and just trust, and got to, through circumstances, every hindrance. I ended up doing corporate work, and every single time I'd get to a certain point, I'd get retrenched, and I'd think, why? I'm doing so well, why me? And then ending up taking that negative and making it a positive bind, because Spirit's saying, this is not where you're meant to be. I have work for you to do. And as illogical as that might sound, ending up where I'm meant to be. I still do work on the side, because unfortunately the world is a very tough place. So I do that, but I also focus and I'm able to do the spiritual thing. Is it a money thing? And people say, oh, there must be big money in this. Hell no. No. If you're doing it for the money side of things, you're in the wrong game. That's not what it's about. This is about being able to give back and able to share. But we all need to live. So I do have to do work additionals. I do have to charge for services and things like that at this stage. And then you do get people say, but you'd work in spiritualness, and why you're not working, why are you charging? You should be doing, because I need to feed, and I've got a child, and I have a home and a loving partner and a husband, and we work together and we do that. But I'm grateful to be able to do this, even if sometimes I have to go out and get bread and butter done too. So it's one of those things.
You use the term spirit. Who is spirit from your perspective and in your context?
So, with a lot of exploration and introspection and going within, because I believe God, Spirit, lives within us. He lives within all of us. And we term it in whatever way we possibly can. So, yes, somebody will speak of Allah, or some people will speak of Jehovah or God or Jesus, and have all these terms for it. Spirit for me encompasses all of that. Spirit for me is that and then some more. It's a higher power that I speak of and doesn't need the term all the way. Yes, I do believe that there are masters and people that have come to this earth to give us guidance and support and all of that. Spirit is above even that. So God to me is all powerful, all loving, all involved and within us, not just in a room or a space or a statue or a fountain or a whatever. And so it's all inclusive from a spiritual perspective. People speak of universe too. The spirit works for me, and it resonates with me because it is more than we can just fathom and put into a box. So that's the term. When I say I connect with spirit, I do connect with source or with spirit. Source is another term for spirit. But I also connect with our spirit ourselves. Once we've passed, loved ones, as I prefer to call them, will come through. It goes into several kind of elements. Your loved ones would come through. Angels, who are hugely forceful forces, have made, and it's a very different perspective for me when connecting with angels, with masters, or with guides. These are elemental beings that are beyond sometimes our capability of dealing with. But we are blessed every now and again with that kind of energy coming into the space. The lovely bit is the soul of one that's passed that we may know or that is part of our ancestry. I love connecting with that. But above all of that is the source, this beautiful power that is just so inspiring and so beautiful. And that's where Jesus fits in, and beloved Muhammad, bless his name be. And, all of these other elements are all part of that. And it's all actually connected, and we all are connected, which is beautiful.
You said to me earlier that from the age of 4 or 5, whatever it was, you started speaking to, for the sake of a better term, dead people. Do you recall your first experience with that, and was it frightening to you?
People often ask me, aren't you scared of ghosts, kind of thing? Is it something that, and yes, there are different elements of spirituality, and not all of us have good experiences with it. And it's very diverse. It's not an easy answer, but no, I'm not intimidated by somebody coming or a spirit coming through for the betterment of another. So in other words, if your grandmother's going to come through and wanting to speak to you and try and give you guidance or love, that's a very different experience than having a negative experience of meeting a soul that is frustrated or is not come to terms with their passing. That's a very negative experience. And I have experienced those negative things too. Part of my training and part of my experience is how to attract positive versus a negative. I'm not one of those that goes off and explores the dark and dingy spots to find what's there out of curiosity. I'm somebody that prefers not to deal with that. And if I am placed into such a circumstance, it takes me a lot to protect myself, because my soul is precious, and to protect those around me. And there are things that I do, behaviors, rituals. There are practices that I have that I know that reinforce me and my soul. So I do a lot of that. Unfortunately, as a kid, one didn't really know. And yes, kids are kids and they start exploring. I was a very nervous child, I wouldn't go out and play with a Ouija board or play glassy or the book and the key and all those kind of odd things that people explore as youngsters. I wasn't one that liked that because it felt wrong to me. I preferred, it was switched on anyway. I didn't need anything to switch it on. So what it entailed was me trying very hard to keep things positive. I have several scary stories that people will like go, oh, they love those, and it's sensationalistic. And I try not to harp on those. But yes, I've been placed in circumstances where negative forces, particularly when you're younger, don't like the fact that you're trying to do good and want to use that for their own benefit and for manipulation and energy. And that's a whole other ball game, which can be very, very daunting and scary, and people get lost in it. So from a young age, I spent a lot of time, if confronted by that, particularly with other people that were searching and got themselves wrapped up in some negative, pulling them out, protecting them out of that. That was what I was there for. That is why I'm here, trying to shine the light and not that negative side of things, because there is a negative element to it.
Are you comfortable talking to us about one of the, let's call it, more unpleasant experiences that you had?
Offhandedly, I have an example where there was a group of youngsters that they got very excited. It was back in the 90s when grunge was a big thing, and heavy metal and all of that kind of baggy, dark behavior. And a family member of mine got quite involved in a group of these kids that would get together, and they would practice connecting in with spirit using the Ouija board. And the circumstances was they were going to show me how this spirit can answer them back. Without any preparation, without any protection, they would just have these moments, get together. There was usually alcohol involved. It was kind of this kind of situation where they would ask me, they want to show me, because, they're going to show me how spiritual they are. And we sat down and they started manipulating and asking for spirit to bring out a physical movement of this item. And true as nuts, the item started moving. But with my gift, I could sense who was coming through, and that what had happened, the sensationalistic feeling that you get involved in it, wasn't verified as to who it was. And I could feel this dark entity that was now using this excitement of these youngsters, getting like really all excited. We're powerful, and there is a sense of power that goes with this kind of thing, which isn't supposedly what it's there for, but let's get them hooked. That's the kind of feeling that comes in. And they started manipulating and asking questions. And as they were asking questions, I just felt, this is not good. This is not good. And what I started doing is forcing the movement of this thing to do the opposite, to not answer correctly. And it's a complicated thing, but like actually on a spiritual level, stepping in the way and moving it the other way. So the answers weren't the way they wanted it. It wasn't going the way. And I kept doing this and preventing it from happening, and they weren't happy, and they were getting more and more frustrated. And eventually I said, okay, guys, well, and they said, no, it's never happened. They've never not been able to. And I thought, they're not permitted. And I eventually got up and I went to the bathroom. And as I came out of the bathroom, I felt this dark entity literally on a physical standing in front of me, preventing me from walking. And this energy was so dark and so angry, and it was trying to push me down. And I just stood my ground, as frightened as what I was. I just said, no, I will come from the light. I'm not allowing you to have a stronghold into these young souls. You're not permitted to do this. With the power that's in me and through God and through Jesus, and I'm just rebuking you. I'm pushing you away. And I did this, and I was literally being pushed down. And I started I go to that which I know, and I started saying the Lord's Prayer because it's a beautiful mantra. And I just kept saying it over and over again. And I said, I've got the light in me, and you're not going to take these people. And eventually this just let go. And I kind of came back, and when that looked at me, I thought, oh no, maybe I'd been sick in the loo. And I wasn't sick in the loo, I was sick outside because of what was going on. And it kind of fizzled. And within time, these guys lost interest like youngsters do. But I realized, you don't do this. Don't do this. Don't go looking for it. And I'll use another example where I was asked to go to a place to go see this is a haunted space. And the haunting wasn't haunting as in, it was a space where a spirit was confused. They didn't believe that they had passed. They didn't believe that and suddenly there were these people in their space and they couldn't understand it, and it was causing trouble. And trying to figure out for themselves where they were, instead of heading towards the light and moving on, they were stuck and confused. And having this, literally things being moved around you. As you're praying, things just drop and fall, and candles get knocked over, and just trying to say, no, this is not, you must understand where you're at. Those are difficult things to deal with, and not for the faint-hearted, and not something to go look at because this is sport. You're dealing with things way above normal. So when these guys go out and they create socially videos of oh, look, we are going to go find the spooks, that's not a good thing if you don't know what you're doing. And even I am hesitant to do it. And I've been doing this for a long time. But it's not something to play with. And I always say to people, don't go looking for things. It's sometimes easier to be ignorant and to be in bliss than to go find that kind of thing. But if you are placed in it, find the right souls, the right people to do it with love and with light, and not with the negative.
When people come and see you for a reading, explain the process that you go through. So somebody they'll make an appointment with you, they'll come there, they'll arrive, and then I know you work with cards and things like that, and we can talk about that in a little bit, but specifically about the people, typically loved ones, that come through. How does that process work, and how do you communicate with those beings, those spiritual beings?
So people that come to me generally come during a time of loss or during a time of trouble, because we generally we don't go to our spiritual half, our side. I always say we split into three: a physical, a mental, and a spiritual half of ourselves. So when we're going through this trial, that's generally when they reach out, because now they don't know anymore. They don't know where else to go. And they've got issues either from past experiences or from loss, and they come to me. Then we go through a process. So when I know somebody's coming with, I'm nervous like the next person because I'm human. And then I usually come in and I pray and I meditate beforehand, where I say, okay, Spirit, I've got clients today, or a client coming in. Please be there. Make this a healing experience for that person. Make it something that resonates with them, and that they can walk out in a better phase or a better state, or a little bit healed, if not completely healed, or get some answers. But you do it, not me. I'm just the radio. I'm not I'm just that process so that the stuff comes through. So I do my whole preparation, which is a whole big thing of getting myself in the right state of mind. And it doesn't mean taking things, or it's just quietening down and trusting and making sure that my environment isn't toxic. And then the client will come in. And as always, especially it's the first time, the client would come in and they're nervous, they don't know what to expect. And I sit them down and say, listen, this is what's going to happen. It's not the movies. It's not this big thing. It's also not the sensation stuff that you see on TV always. Sometimes it's small and it's intimate. But the more open you are to receiving this messages that are coming through, and the more you ask questions, the better it is. And then I start. So yes, my process does include cards. I do a reading, and they've always just been, that was my start off to find some sort of clarity, and I love them, and I start in that. And then I used to have a thing where when I was being trained, and I'm being trained by several people, I had this control mechanism that I always said to spirit, if I got my glasses on, then you don't talk to me, because then it's a no-go. But if I take my glasses off, then you're allowed to speak to me. And it was something I used to do in the past, and it doesn't work anymore because something's happened. The world is different. Spirit is just more intense at the moment. But when I was younger, it used to work really well. Could take. Only thing is, I don't bath in with my glasses or sleep with my glasses on, so it wasn't the best choice of thing, but it was what came to mind. Anyway, so then what happened is when I need to speak to them, I would take my glasses off. Now I connect, and it's mostly an internal communication. Do I hear spirit? Do I actually hear physical words? It has happened. Do I sometimes see physical? Yes, I do. But it's predominantly a third eye, an internal process. And in the beginning, the process was where I would start seeing images of things. I wouldn't necessarily see people. So I would see for instance, I love flowers. I'm a big gardener. So I would see flowers and I'd say, I don't know what this means to you, but I'm seeing roses, or I'm seeing lilies, or I'm seeing something that is beautiful. Does it have meaning to you? That kind of imagery. Or they'd show me items. Sometimes they would show me, I would feel a physical pain or a physical sensation. And I would trust that and say to the person, I'm feeling like being choked, or I'm feeling heaviness here or pain here. And that's what they're coming through. And then as I continue to connect in, I start feeling and seeing the physicality of the spirit that comes through. And I'll explain, sometimes it's a male or a female, which is a great place to start. I've actually had that they don't show a sex, or whether they're male or female, which throws in a whole other spectrum into things. Is it important? But for the person wanting the reading, I'd say I may have a male, female, I'll have a group, whatever it is, and I'll start explaining what they look like. And I give as much physical energy or confirmation that I can give them, identifying who it is, whether it's an older person, a younger person. And yes, it's easy to say I have a grandparent, because most of us all have grandparents that passed, or a great-grandparents that passed. But I try and give it as specific as possible, give items, give clothing, give mannerisms, give stories, give information that's just so that they know who I'm connecting with, they know who it is. And that there's a sense of understanding. And sometimes it's brilliant. And and I always say, when you've hit the mark, when they burst into tears. But sometimes it's not, and they've got to. And I mean, I've had it myself. If somebody said, I've got a spirit coming through for you, and I go, I don't know who this is. And then I'll get into the car and go, oh my goodness, how could I have forgotten this is who it is? Sometimes it takes a bit of time, but they identify, and I'm just open, allow, and I don't put my prejudice in it. I give what I get, because when I try and put my prejudice, that's when it is insincere, and it doesn't. So sometimes I've said things and I've kind of like thought, God, they probably think it's me and I'm nuts. How can I say these things? But they go like, you were so spot on. And then I go, well, thank you. At least I know I'm not crazy, but I'm glad it's working for you. So then I give that information through. And usually the first half is all about confirming who it is, but mostly the actual reason you're there is for why they're there. What the information are they wanting to give, to carry across? And the great information that I've got to share is they never come through with they're in a bad state. They always come through, we're here for you. We do want resolve for you, to make life better for you. And often it's not the ones you want. The ones that are on earth that have been your support aren't usually the ones that come through. It's the ones that weren't your support that come through now, and they now want you to they want to do better. They want to help. They want to share, which is quite, they want you to know the good side and actually cover for them, which is fantastic. So that's how they relate through, and I give as much as I can. But the one thing I must just tell you is it takes energy from me, and it takes energy from the person, but it takes energy from spirit too, from them, and it's not easy. Therefore, if somebody passes today, they're not always ready to come through immediately. it takes a lot of energy and trust on their side, and they bring in support and others that have done it before. It's a very interesting. And the one sure thing that I can with all heart say, there's life in a different form, but a beautiful form after death. And that gives me such a reward. I don't have to worry. I see it, I feel it, I know it. And that's such a gift to be able to share. And I I've had people come back and say, no, this doesn't resonate with me. And it's okay, it's your journey. But the good news is I've had them come back again a year, two, and say things like, it didn't mean anything to me then, but now I'm like, I can't believe how amazing that was for me. And that means even more for me because I know that Spirit is using me for the healing that is needed. It's not about me. It isn't about me whatsoever. I'm just the radio. I'm not, it's not there. Yes, I get some things out of it. Sometimes I think, oh, I never thought about it like that. Thank you, Spirit. But it's not about me. It's about the healing the person gets.
Can you tell me some of the good stories? Clients who've had really good outcomes. Anything like that that you can share with us?
Um, Obviously, with regards to my readings, it's confidential and it's very private. But I have several instances where parents, particularly, or loved ones, partners, would come through and the partner's committed or the child is committed suicide, and there's guilt and frustration that the person needing the reading is trying to get resolved, because most of the time we're taught, oh no, if you commit suicide, it's a bad thing, it's a terrible thing, and it is not condoned. So the first thing that I've had that happens is a spirit will come through and I've connected, and I wouldn't know that they'd committed, but they'd come through, and the parent or the family member, and then identify them and say, this person's come through, but it feels like there's always a sense of a sudden passing and an immense amount of regret. And the fact that, first of all, the person hasn't gone to hell, the person isn't in the fires, but the person is going through a process of trying to come to terms with what they've done because they've taken their own life. And there is accountability. So please understand that there's accountability, but that there is even life, even growth after that. The one thing they always say when it comes to after is that they regret it. Life is so precious and is so important that they do regret it. And there's a lot that they need to work through in the spirit side of what the effect of their life is. Even a person that's lived a pretty good mundane life has moments of regret, and those are the things we work through. And often, to me, that is what hell resonates with me. So going to have to look of what our life was about and how we have affected others and what the consequences of our behavior is. That's the hell we've got to go through. So they often come through and say, they try and explain why they did what they did, and they often explain how sorry they are about it, and if they had the opportunity they wouldn't do it again. But they often feel the way they interpret is that they're stuck in this whirlpool that keeps sucking them further, and the only way they knew to let go was to just let go. And therefore it speaks to depression, it speaks to schizophrenia and all these mental problems and these frustrations and the stresses, and that it becomes so overwhelming. That's why they let go. And that they do have a sense of regret, but they also have a sense of now they can deal with things. And that gave me a great sense of release and relief and understanding. And for the person, that's also just knowing that that person is not gone for good. They're just dealing with things on that side, but there is accountability, and that's amazing to be able to have brought through, and not through me, because I didn't know why they died. They just came through, and this is the information that came through. That was amazing. The other thing on a personal note that is so amazing to hear is that in spirit, they don't care about your sexuality. That was a big one for me personally, because I mean, as a gay person, you're not allowed in. and you are allowed in. That was amazing, amazing. And for parents, or family members, when that was an issue, knowing that, it's the love that continues, not any of the earthly nonsense that we have. The other thing is that is probably one of the most beautiful things. And as a parent, I don't understand why children pass before parents, but that understanding of knowing that the child has had a life that's a purpose, even if that child was here for brief seconds or didn't even make it onto, there's a purpose for that life, and that they continue, and just knowing that they're thrilled to have been part of your journey and been part of your learning experience, and that there is preordained plan for all of this is just amazing for me. And to see the people walk back and just in a whatever form it is, know that they're okay, and they are more worried about us on this planet doing our silly little things than about themselves, because it's easier where they are, and they're loved, and the love is the predominance, and they reconnect with loved ones. That is so amazing. And knowing that you're not going to be stuck all alone, and that those people around you that have left before you, they're there to welcome you. That is awesome for me. And know that your spirit goes on. What better news do we need to know? And that gives me all the purpose for sharing it. And just knowing that the person now needs to, all they want you to do is forgive the faults they made, understand it, and learn from our example, even if the example was a bad example. Even if they made the worst mistakes, that example they want others to learn from. And when we learn from the mistakes of those that have gone ahead, we actually honor them. And that makes it so beautiful for me. It really and truly does. And gives me purpose and reason for why we're here, which is fantastic. And that the normal, horrible things we do aren't good, but there's a purpose why things happen that are sad, and why sometimes we're the villain in the story, and sometimes there's a lesson to be learned, and the big important bit is growing the soul and changing that negative into a love. That's what's good.
From your perspective, do we have an A to B path that is mapped out for us?
We very enthusiastic before we get to this planet. We come here with this, like, I'm going to conquer everything. I'm going to do this. I'm going to become the best version of myself. And then we get here, and unfortunately, 90% of that gets hidden from us, because it's got to be a true growth and not a artificially inspired growth. And then when we get here and we suddenly have put forward, I'll challenge myself. I will be in bad relationship, go through abuse, go through horrible things, war, pain, illness. Then we go, no, I would never have agreed to this. And that's those moments where we're being challenged to live up to the understanding we have. So yes, there is a big plan, and we often bite off more than we can chew. And then we have these moments of, oh no. But when we claw our way through that darkness, and we get to the other side, we go, okay, yes, I know I overcome it. But during the time, we don't see it. But there's definitely a game plan we come with, because when you get to the other side, they often report back, it was part of my journey to be the villain, or to experience the pain, or to be limited in some form, because it's a lesson my soul needed to learn. And often I say to myself when they say, but I had such horrid parents, or a horrid partner, or whatever. You agreed to being in that relationship. It is your job to get beyond that, to learn from that, and then change that into a positive, however that is, for your soul and for the others that are around you, and the example you leave behind. That's the journey. And it makes life challenging. And when I hear people say, I would never have agreed to lose this or experience this, I quietly chuckle and don't show them that out of respect, but I chuckle and say, I think you did. And now's the challenge time. Now's the time to climb out of that hole and show them that version of yourself you want to be. And that's why we're here. We're here to grow, and we're here to change, and we're here to become the best version of ourselves, because that's why this is such an intensive journey. Spirit has told me there are other places we can be. There are other, but they're not quite as intense as this. This is the most intense soul journey you can go on. And we chose to be here. We have a purpose to be here. So yes, there's an A, and there's eventually a B. But that B can be a C, D, E, and an F, and eventually can be also, and then, yes, that explains reincarnation, because we may have to come back, or we do have to come back and change it, or continue growing, to ultimately get to the point where we are so much more. That's why we soul.
I have no doubt that in all of the time that you spent doing what you're doing, you would have come across countless skeptics.
Yes, I have. I must admit, I've come across more awakening moments than shutting off. We aren't all ready at the same time. We aren't all doing what we need to do at the same time. So when I get confronted by that umotani, that guy or that girl, that person that will come up to me and say, you know, what you do is from the devil, or what you do is bad, and you're doing awful things, I understand it. And I think once you understand the perspective of where they're coming from, it changes how you react to it. I know the good, I know the light, and I know the outcome of it. They will too. It just might not be for them today. And that's okay, because they're walking their journey, and they'll get back and say, oh, okay, there was more. The thing is, when you give in to fear, or when you need others to make decisions for you, or you subscribe to things that make you feel more comfortable, that's part of your journey, not mine. And you've got the freedom of choice. You can say no. You don't have to. You can live in your little sheltered box. But yes, when you get to the other side, you've missed an opportunity, and that's between you and your journey, not mine. And I deal with it on a regular basis, that somebody will come to me, but I've realized in time, people are becoming more and more open-minded, more and more tolerant, not perfect, but getting there. And that gives me hope. That gives me an understanding that there are big things and big changes on its way. And that's exciting for me. And I'm grateful to be part, in my whatever small way, of that journey, as people change and become a little more in touch with that soul side, and not need others or circumstances to act on their behalf. And that's fantastic for me.
Let's talk a little bit about what you're wearing. What's the correct terminology for it?
Well, this is a kurta, which comes from India, and the significance is a very personal one. It is something that I was shown in a dream or vision, as best as you can, and it was such an honoring to, and I wear it at times. I don't always wear it. I've had people come up to me and see me in what they would say normal clothes, a pair of jeans, and said, I didn't know you even own this. I do. I like my jeans. But it's something that I wear in honor when I really and truly feel I'm in my spiritualness. And the reason I got to wearing the white and the kurta was at a stage we were going through to try and adopt a child, which I'm very blessed I have. And I saw myself wearing this white with my partner and having this little joy bundle in my arm. And just this vision of that, and it was way before we were even ready, and we were never really ready for having a child, and all good parents would know that. But I just saw this, and I thought, Spirit, if that's how you see me, that's how I'd like to be seen. And I started wearing it, and there is a sense of respect about it. There is a sense of honoring about it. And I've tried some other colors, and they don't always resonate with me. I wear it just to remind myself of how spirit sees me. So that's why I wear it. It is comfortable. Sometimes it's a bit hot. Sometimes I think I need shorter sleeves. And I do need to replace some of them. They're getting a bit threadbare, but I love it, and that's why I wear it. And it's a tool for me in a certain respect, just as a reminder of what spirit sees me, and I think all of us in, as this little bit of light, which is quite awesome.
Tell me about the beads that you're wearing, and I see you wearing beads on your wrist as well.
So when times get difficult for me and I need to kind of calm down, these are mechanisms I use, and I use them as mantra processes, breathing tools. I use them to kind of ground myself more than anything else. There are things that I'll say and I'll breathe in between. After each breathe, I will move on and I'll say it again, or sometimes I'll change it. Affirmations, mantras, which are just spoken word to help manifest and bring in positivity. So that's what it's about for me. The reason there's an end bit is that's where I stop, or I know to start again. So that's what it's about. Different belief structures, different religions generally use it for the same purposes. And I use them for my personal purposes. They're very significant to me. I believe I like things because I also think they're pretty and very simple. But I have variant ones of them, and sometimes I'll wear them on the outside or inside, and I'll change them up. These are ones that I personally made myself for myself. So yes, and there's an energy connected to them.
A lot of people, I would imagine, misunderstand what you do, who you are, and they might look at you and go, oh, he's a fortune teller, something like that. Perhaps. And I think that possibly a misunderstanding around that, and people would say, well, if you've got access to all this infinite knowledge, why don't you know the Lotto numbers?
The lovely Lotto numbers. Hell, if I did know the Lotto numbers, goodness me, can you imagine the amazing work I could do for society and for myself, I suppose, too, but predominantly give. Yeah, when it comes to predictions or looking into the future, there's an accountability and a responsibility, and not everybody's ready to be a Lotto winner. Not everybody's ready for the information of telling them stuff. And I have a policy of not going and telling people things when I'm walking through the mall or the shopping center. I don't do that because not everybody's ready to hear things. You've got to be ready yourself. Sometimes Spirit does give me an insight into your journey and a guidance into your journey. But it's not about making it easier for you. It's making you understand or giving you guidance or helping you. And I think 90% of us, if we got the Lotto, would turn into a worse version of ourselves and not a better version of ourselves. So Spirit doesn't want that. They want you to process things the way you're supposed to process them. And yes, if you need the Lotto and they give it through to you and I hear them, I might use them for myself and play the Lotto, which might not be part of my journey. Yeah, fortune telling and just prediction or yes, sometimes we have freedom of will. So you can be told you need to go to the specific space at the specific time. But life might have a different journey for you, and it might change because you have free will to be able to decide differently. It's my honoring not to influence people into what I think is better for them, but I can highlight what spirit deems important. So I can give guidance, but it's not a one, these are the 3 steps you need to take. You still have your own free will to go about it. And yes, sometimes I've said things without knowing that I'm hitting the mark, but it's not me saying it, it's spirit giving it. And sometimes, yes, it has been very, very fruitful guidances for people. And I'm great to have been that thing. But sometimes it's a smack on the wrist, and that might be more important than the winning lotto numbers.
Do you ever, during your readings, have messages coming through, albeit from past loved ones who've coming through, or from spirit, where you choose not to share that information with people?
It does happen. I love sharing the good news. It's not a good thing to share the bad news. I have had many clients that I knew in my heart that negativity was coming, be it death, be it loss, be it sadness. And first thing I do is I ask Spirit, and I do this internally. I ask Spirit, am I allowed to share this? And sometimes Spirit will say it's not a good thing. You can imply it, and I'm glad you know it, but it's not. They're not ready to hear it. I sometimes will then say to the client, to the person, the recipient, I'd say to them, how honest do you want me to be? And then the onus is on them, the accountability is on them. If they say they want to know the truth, I'll give them the truth. But there have been moments where I have not felt it is my right to say to somebody that I'm sensing or feeling, and that things are going to go pear-shaped. And then I've asked Spirit if I should say, and usually they'll say to me beforehand, please be honest, don't hold it back. And then I know that not only is Spirit saying it to me internally, but they're actually giving me permission. And then I will share it. Sometimes it's better not to know. Because if you knew that next week, Tuesday, you were going to hit the lotto, this weekend or next weekend or the weekend before would be just chaos. Maybe it's better not to know and to be genuine about it. And that's generally how I approach such things.
I know as part of your readings you use tarot cards. You mentioned that a little bit earlier. Can you give me some insight as to how that works on an energy level? Because the skeptic would just see a deck of cards and you would randomly open something, but your view would more likely be that you would choose a card based on certain energies. And the skeptic would say, well, if I cut the deck here, I'm going to get a certain card. But if I cut it 30 seconds later, I might get a different card. So how do you explain that to the skeptic?
So these tools, which tarot is a one that I'm very fond of, and I have a feeling and affinity towards tarot. I do a lot of other things, and there are quite a few, but I do with tarot. The remarkability about it is not only it's twofold. So a card will be picked, and it doesn't necessarily need to be the reader connecting it. And there's some people that will tell you, no, you can't pick cards for others. They need to pick the card, that you can only use this hand or that hand, and you can never, cards are upside down mean this. And it's very different. It's very different for each and every tarot reader. And I don't judge on anybody. I keep things very simple. I'm not a very complicated person. But the most amazing thing is that the cards that are picked have nothing to do with the picker but they're there for a specific reason. And that reason is always there, and I'm always surprised by it. So a card would have a specific reason of placing where it is however you're reading. And it also has a specific meaning of how it's lying and also what is lying next to. It has also got what the picture says. Now, there's a general rule with regards to different packs. This card means this card means that, and you get taught these things, and that you can get out the books, you can get out of the internet, you can get out of any that. But what I also do is I ask Spirit to guide me to give what that card means. So there's a channeling, if for the sense of a right word, that also gets it. So although I know this card means that there's travel coming, but this card means that the travel's going to be far or long. It's going to be for a good purpose, for a bad purpose. I know that where it is thing is you're thinking about it, you're not actually doing it, and you need to acknowledge it. There's all these other things that lie in it. And as you get these cards out, and then not only does that tell a story, but it tells a big picture when you've got all the cards that you've pulled out. And the amazing bit is to just see that, like, I can't believe that makes sense to me. And that's what's amazing about tarot and how it works. Whether you pull one card or 20 cards, and trusting Spirit to give the information that is right, not just stuff that I've learned. If that makes sense.
How will people know if they have a gift like yours? And if they do realize that they have a gift with yours, how do they build on it?
So the truth is that everybody has a gift within them. I always say there's no one that is not connected to, because Spirit's within us. It is just where it is. Some people have an innate, or just born with an ability to trust it and to be able to use these gifts. And some people need to work on it. Some people need to be trained and to understand and explore. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I learn every single day. Every single day I still learn. So to say to somebody, "Oh, I'm now as master of," no, I'm a master of my journey. I am trying and I'm growing. And so every single person, no matter, they all grow, and they can tell you, "Oh, but no." I honestly believe we're all still growing. When somebody and the youth are all somehow more switched on to it than what we are, and I say it's because there's innocence and there's not that package that we've been forced into that makes it happen. Is it enthusiastic to explore it? Find what resonates with you, what is truthful to you, and what you're ready to understand. I always say, don't let it don't ever become so heavenly, spiritually good that you know earthly good whatsoever. So there has to be a purpose behind everything. And knowledge is knowledge. Where you find it, Spirit will guide. I get out of books, and I get out of internet, I get out of company, I get out of other people's things. You learn like that. Find the right people, and which resonate, and always protect yourself from exploitation, from negativity, from people that will use it. As soon as somebody is trying, your gut will know when they're trying to exploit you. Your gut always tells you, I don't resonate here. This doesn't feel good. Then step away. But don't give up, because your soul is striving for you to grow and to be the best version of yourself. And yes, in that is to be receptive to acknowledging that we are a physical self, we are a mental self, and we are a spiritual self. And yes, wherever it resonates with you, but as long as it's done with love, then it will work. It will have its meaning.
Some time ago, you were inspired to start a church. Talk to me a little bit about where that inspiration came from and why you chose to do it.
Well, the church that I'm involved with actually started a long time before me, actually. It's been running since the 1950s. And I was very fortunate enough to become part of the community and get involved with it. But it started off with doing mediumship on platform, as we call it. So on a Sunday, the service has a pretty normal service with lots of singing and a lot of praying and some meditation. What happened was COVID came, and the previous president of the church approached me and said she's been asking Spirit who to take over, and the only name that kept coming up is, would I try and keep this little sanctuary going? And it was initially, I had thought, oh, I don't know if I've got it in me. And then I said, I will go to my other half and ask permission, because I don't just do things. And our family is important. And but eventually Spirit was kept saying, this is what's needed. And so I don't own this church. I am elected as a member, as a president for the little church. And it is just an awesome, wonderful, where like-minded people get together. Yes, it has a Christian basis, but that's not really the important bit. The important bit is that like-minded people trying to grow their spirit. It's an amazing platform for healing, for growth, for getting information, for meeting like-minded people. And there's a great sense of community. And we every year I'm striving to allow for more and more people. It doesn't have the guilt of the normal church. Like, you're not going to not get into heaven if you don't participate in this and that. And there's room for Jesus, and there's room for whatever belief you have. But the most important is that you have a one-on-one relationship with God. That was what important, that it becomes part of your daily practice. And on a Sunday we get together, and we just have this awesome time of finding out more, getting guidance, getting support, knowing that we're not alone. And then we're not the only one. There are quite a few throughout South Africa and the world of these spiritual sanctuaries. And it is a great place to start your spiritual journey, or find support in your spiritual journey for the whole family, without the guilt, without the pressure, without that you have to pay X to get in, and if you don't, you're not worthy. We're all worthy. We're all growing, and we're all human, and we're going through this human experience. But we're adding a huge dollop of spiritual growth into it, and that's what it's actually about.
What does Spirit want for us?
Spirit, the biggest thing that Spirit wants us to have is to know that we are loved and we're not alone, and that we are eternal. That's important. Our soul is eternal. The physical body goes, but the soul continues. Spirit wants us to know that we're on a journey, and that we're growing, and that there is a life in a different form, one wink away, one heartbeat away. And that when we die, we are not just gone. We continue to grow, we continue to love, we continue to become this beautiful next part of ourselves. Spirit also wants us to know at this point in time, in the world that we're in now, that we should not give in to fear. We should not be stuck in this heaviness that we're in. That if we add that extra dollop of spiritual awakening, a spiritual being into who we are and what we're doing, it changes things. And then suddenly the world can be this beautiful, amazing, growing experience. It doesn't have to remain in this negative, exploitative, angry place. If we suddenly add that view in our lives, we would have a very different day than what we were anticipating having. The world does need us to do things which we need to do. We don't have to exploit it, and we also don't need to do it with a dollop of hatred, but with a dollop of love. The other thing is not to give in to fear. Fear is often the reason why we do things that is bad. And the one thing Spirit keeps hounding into my ears is saying, don't give in on fear. When you are confronted by things that make you feel down, feel it in your gut. Your gut is a good barometer of what is positive and if this is true or this is just fear-based. And when you really start acknowledging when people are manipulating us because of fear, suddenly we start making better decisions and we start making this world the beautiful place it's meant to be, this loving place. And at the end of the day, it's the love we take on with us, none of the other nonsense that we get so caught up in. And if we can hear that, that will just be the most amazing gift.
If people want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
I can provide people with the connectivity I work on by phone numbers, but at the moment, social media is the big one. Just look for Glenn Kirkwood Eales, and I'm there. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and so forth, um, and find out more. I love sharing. I love communicating with everybody. I like being able to feel that I'm part of a community. So reach out. I'm there. Nowadays it's easy. Just look up my name and it's a double N. I'm a Glenn and not just a Glenn. And I'd love to communicate with people.
It's been great talking to you, Glenn. Thank you so much for spending time with me.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure.